Hi, I'm Donna Pescow, and this is Game Changers.
Yes, it is. Hi, Donna.
Vicki,
I can't. I know
Hi,
this sounds
I'm Donna
like
Pescow, and this is Game Changers.
Look at this. Now it's doubling
Yes,
the
it is.
sound.
Hi,
Oh
Donna.
my God, Donna! Everything that is technically could go crazy here is going crazy.
It's my karma with technology.
It's Mercury retrograde. Do you believe in any of that stuff? Do you believe
Only
in
tonight?
Huh?
Tonight I do.
I know. Yeah. Well, it's everything that can go wrong, except everything is right because you're here.
Well, you're so sweet. I'm happy to be here. I really am.
I've been trying to get you here for a very long time, as you know. I am such a huge fan. And more than a fan, though, I've really come to just love who you are. You're just such an amazing person. And I just love your, oh God, I just closed something I shouldn't have closed. All right, I'm gonna try to get it so that all the people that would have seen us, that when we were on the other thing are gonna see us now. So Donna, while I'm doing this, you know that I'm COVID crazy, I'm sure, because you've seen some Facebook stuff and that the people who watch the show are COVID.
I'm right there with you. I'm completely with you.
Okay. So tell me, what has COVID been like for you? In how has your life changed with COVID?
Well, you know, I have to say that, you know, for the first part of it, I think everybody was trying to kind of adjust to quarantine and not seeing one another and all of that, which, you know, obviously was really weird. For me, you know, my husband, you know, said he's been practicing for this his whole life. He's usually trying to get out of social events and 10 or 12 reasons why he doesn't need to go with me. He was okay. But, you know, generally speaking, I think the toughest thing was not really seeing people that you normally see all the time. And for us, it was not really seeing our son because he was afraid to visit. And when he would wear a mask and stay really far away from us. And I'm not even sure it was him some of the time. He might have.
Oh my God. But were you seeing each other like the whole time?
My son and I, well, yeah. No, I mean, there were weeks, you know, where we didn't, just because, you know, he just felt it was too dangerous to really, he was still working and he didn't really want to expose us to anything until everybody knew it was okay. But I think, you know, generally speaking, everybody got into this kind of routine where you knew pretty much what the day was going to be and who you would see. And so that's when, you know, all of the technology, Zoom, cocktail parties and get-togethers and what have you, you know, I think that's when all of that really started on a major scale. Cocktail parties and get-togethers and what have you, you know, I think that. I just heard all of what I said.
I know, because I'm trying to make sure that people are able to get on the show. I'm sorry I'm doing all this stuff.
No, it's fine.
I just want to make sure they're with us, and they are now. So, okay. So yeah, so your husband is not the most social animal, so staying home was not a big thing. And how about for you? Because I would imagine that you are social. Are you a social person?
Yeah. I mean, I am and I'm not. I mean, I think I'm probably less than a lot of friends of mine who are brilliant at going to every event and being out there all the time. I'm not good at that. I think that I probably do less than most people. And I don't know. It's just unless it's something I'm involved in, a project, or it's with friends that really are close. You know, I tend more to, you know, small groups of people, intimate dinners, whatever, but not big events most of the time, unless it's sort of personally special.
And how, okay, when COVID hit, were you in the middle of anything? what did you, right before it happened, did you have work pending? Were you in the middle of work? Were you anticipating work? Were you in a break? I mean, what was life like right before it happened?
Well, I actually worked a little during COVID, but we'll talk about it. But you know, it's funny. I had gone through this thing and I thought I need to really get my act together personally and physically, get into shape and just generally, you know, do things that, this was prior to COVID. So I
Right.
you know, was walking a lot and I lost a lot of weight, and I decided I'm going to, you know, change my look and really look better than I have in years and work really hard. And I did, you know, I worked really hard too. I lost about 35 pounds and I
all right, wait, stop. How did you do that? How did you do that?
I went on one of these diets that it's high protein, low carbohydrate, somewhat medically supervised. And basically, I think you eat pictures of food most of the time. I know that I was eating things I don't really think I ever tasted, but it was, it was very regimented and very strict. And you know, I was grumpy, but it worked.
Okay, so I'm doing Jenny Craig right now because I can't be left to my own devices. I've tried every diet during COVID. If they say eat this, this, and this, I eat too much of it. I cannot be trusted. How did you do it?
Well, this particular diet that I was on is you kind of put your body in a situation where you go into what's called ketosis. And so if you go off of it, you know, you start putting weight back on. So basically it's like really mostly protein, very little carb, and it's you know, mostly vegetable carbs or maybe, you know, occasionally they'll throw a piece of bread at you, and if you catch it, you can eat it. But you know, the thing for me that I'm like you know, I always said my problem with food generally was a lot of people got into drugs and drinking, and my problem was Sara Lee. You know, I felt I did a 12-step program that had mostly to do with sweets and desserts, and you know, food was pretty much what I would use for celebrating or for being depressed or just because it was in front of me.
Yes.
You know what? So I had to really kind of readjust all of that.
Okay, so you go on this diet and it's mostly protein and low carbs and a lot of vegetables. I tried that too. My cardiologist, because I have a cardiologist now, Donna, because that's where we are. That's where I am.
I know, believe me, I do.
Okay, so he said 30% protein, 70% vegetables. So I wanted to get enough protein. So my protein was like this, my vegetables, it didn't work.
It has to do with the plate. You know, they have these plates that have dividers in them. And I always felt if you use something like the size of a charger or the size of like a serving tray, you know, even if it's divided, you're getting more food. But, you know, the thing is, you have to be mentally ready. And that's really all there is to it. But, you know, getting back to the COVID thing, I thought, well, God, now I'm in this amazing shape I haven't been in, you know, for so many years. And then the business. So, you know, I thought, well, I got new pictures and I no work because no business. So, you know, I would, you know, say to Arnold, my husband, you know, occasionally I said, just take a picture and, you know, don't surprise me, like, and then put it on the refrigerator, or as if, you know, you caught me at an event and it's a candid shot, because for the first time I can wear this dress in 30 years. So my big problem with COVID was the fact that there was no work and I had given up, you know, desserts. So I know that's not a medical reason and a scientific situation, but.
Okay, do you know about frozen grapes? Are you allowed to eat fruit?
Not grapes.
You're not allowed to eat, right? Yeah.
I look at them. I can give them to you.
Look at them. So what do you eat? All right, nighttime eating is my downfall. I I have a really hard time not snacking. So what did you do during that period when you were doing all that losing? Did you, okay, I know about ketosis. So were you not eating for 12 hours? Were you not eating after a certain time?
It's all that fun stuff. It's, basically, it's kind of trying to change your mindset to not thinking that you're deprived,
Right.
but thinking, very much that you're in prison. And, until that comes through that little slot in the door.
Come on, did you do you must have done stand up somewhere in your life.
I didn't. I haven't, I did a club act for, a while where I sang and then I talked and.
Well, I see something in your future and it says stand up, Donna. I'm sorry, but
okay.
I see it now.
It's the old short joke. I am standing, but.
Go. So, okay. So at night, all right, you're sitting in front of the TV with Arnold, you're watching something. What do you eat? What are you snacking on?
Just my thoughts. There really is no snacking. Well, here's the thing. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about,
we won't. We're going to move on.
I'll probably leave and go and, do a drive-through. But, the thing is, I really, for me personally, I had to change. Oh, this is so boring. I had to change.
Not boring. Everybody on here is interested.
And probably eating while I'm trying to tell me I need an Oreo. I just, it's just thinking differently about food. And the hardest thing for me really was not throwing in the towel. My problem was not so much starting something, but seeing it through to the actual finish where the results happened. And, because we've all done this, we've all been dieting on and off our whole lives. And for me, I just thought, I can't keep saying it's baby weight. My son is out of the house. It just, so.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll let you stop talking about food. I'm fascinated because I'm in it.
You look fabulous. You shouldn't have to lose another ounce.
Except if I stand up, it's all on the bottom. It's all on the bottom. Do you remember that skit on Saturday Night Live where the people had like really big behinds? That's the family of which I come from. Really big bottoms. So, all right. So you did work all right. Did you go to the grocery store in COVID?
I did. I swear to God, I thought at one point I'm just, no one, I was so neurotic and you say, I had masks and gloves and shields and I was so nuts. I would go to the market and all of that. And then I would come home, take everything off, shower, do the laundry. I had holsters for Lysol spray, where, if you came near me or you came near anything that was being touched, for the longest time, I thought that's what the air smelled like after a while.
Okay. So you did all of that.
That was insane.
Okay. But you'd worked in COVID. So how did you manage that? Well,
there a couple of jobs came my way that were out of state, which I didn't want to do because I thought if I'm insane, going to Gelson's, I can't even imagine LAX. So I just, I said no there. But then, something wonderful. I did an episode of Truth Be Told with Octavia Spencer, and I'd have to really have malaria to turn that down. So, but they were so buttoned down and they were so incredibly careful and they followed every COVID rule. I think I was tested every single day.
Wow.
While on set. And then before that, you'd go to the place where they stick the large Q-tip up your nose, which was lovely.
Right.
And, so I felt, and everything was very
Aren't
you know,
you cute?
as I said, button down where you couldn't get near someone. And then, of course, I had the audacity to say, Octavia, can we take a picture? You know, which this poor woman, you know, I thought, well, I'll never work with her again. But you know, she'll probably say, I want her away, get her off this. But it was really well done.
That's wonderful. And did you feel safe on set?
I did, because again, you know, they really were very careful. Everybody was masked. Everybody was, you know, distanced when they could be, and everybody was tested every second. So, you know, you knew that there was a very little chance of you know, any kind of bad exposure.
And so
But
now that things have sort of, I assume you're double vaxxed and you're.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So has your life with Arnold changed? How much has your life changed back to some?
He still doesn't want to go anywhere, but that's, you know, sort of how is it? You know, it's really funny. We are just now starting to go back out into the world. I'm still not brave. Well, I'm not brave enough yet to go to an indoor restaurant. We're going to restaurants that still have outdoor areas, but we are starting to do that. And we went with our friends Lee Purcell and her partner Bobby to the Huntington Museum, which was gorgeous and wonderful. And we hadn't seen them for the longest time, and so there was, you know, this amazing reunion with friends that you are so close with and that you don't get to see, and suddenly you're out in the world with them and you feel like there's normalcy, and you know, it's amazing. It really is wonderful to be back, you know, with some kind of actual real lifestyle, you know, again. But we haven't gone back big time.
I haven't gone into an indoor restaurant. Are you ready to travel? Like, I'm not ready to get on an airplane. Can you get on an airplane, do you think?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Soon.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, good. All right. So now let's talk about Donna Pescow. Okay. So Donna, I know you're a girl from Sheepshead Bay, and I spent time on Nostrand Avenue with my friends. And there used to be like some coffee shop that we used to go to that I can't remember the name of. It was very famous. And, but Jane Dubrow, she probably went to school with you at some point. But anyway, so you're a girl in Brooklyn. I assume you're doing high school, you know, you're doing all the high school, you're doing the drama stuff in school, right? Yeah.
Well, they had I went to Sheepshead High School, and they had a show every year. They used to call it Sing.
Yeah.
The sort of title of the three great was sophomores, juniors, seniors. Each group did their own sort of original play with music from whatever they chose, and they parodied the words and sort of rewrote it. And I did that. I loved doing that. And I was actually, in my senior year, I was Miss Sing, which was really lovely and very sweet. And but still, you know, you think, well, I don't know if I can do a parody song of you know, if I were a rich man in an audition, but at the same time, but it was so much fun. You know, it was great.
So did you study voice? Did you study drama? Did you do that when you were young? Before American Academy.
Before the Academy? No, I didn't study before the Academy. No, I did not. I went to the Academy right after high school. So
how did you get in? What was your audition for the Academy?
Oh, I did audition for the Academy. You know, I'm sure I can't remember what I auditioned with, but I'm sure it was something that I was completely wrong for. You know, I think when you are starting out, I wanted to be Blanche Dubois. I wanted to be, you know, some incredible character that, you know, here I was, this 18-year-old from Brooklyn who probably had very little understanding of all of it. but I was lucky and I got in.
It's more than luck, but okay, well, we'll go with that for now. And did you have visions of musicals? Did you study dance in school?
Yes, in school. And then I would take dance classes outside of school, but most of my training really happened after high school when I went into the academy. And the academy was, it's a full curriculum where you go 5 days a week, 4 hours a day, and you have every conceivable subject that has to do with the arts. So
Right.
you have dance and you have movement and you have drama, you have classical training as well in, Shakespeare and Moliere, whatever, they felt was necessary for you to be well-rounded.
Right.
And you had speech, which was very important to me because they said you can't have a regional accent. And of course, coming from Brooklyn, my accent, I sounded like a really bad imitation of Barbra Streisand.
Do your accent still?
Well, if I went back, if when I'm with people I grew up with, or when I go home, it starts to come back a little bit more.
Yeah, more. Yeah, more.
Cars leave me, and I want coffee.
Pizza, water. Yeah.
Yeah, and so a lot of that comes, and I occasionally, I will not realize COVID did that to me a little bit, because I was only, talking to Arnold, and so occasionally I would sort of fall back into not worrying about whether I had a regional accent.
So, okay, they did that. I went to the University of Arizona and they did the same thing for me. They took the Bronx out of the girl and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Standard American speech, I think it's.
There you go. So now you get out of the American Academy, you do some off-Broadway, I'm thinking off-Broadway, you do a soap opera, General Hospital.
Well, I didn't do that. After the Academy. The General Hospital I did way later.
Okay, that's the wrong one. There was one soap that you did though before Saturday Night Fever, wasn't there?
Yes, well, that's an interesting thing. And it's on my IMDb, which I don't know why, but I did. It was either an under 5, which means you have under 5 lines, or it was an extra part on One Life to Live, and I was, I think, either a hat check girl or a waitress, or I was in a restaurant scene, and I might have said hello or hat. I can't really remember, but it was not like this role that I had, and I actually did it after we had finished filming Saturday Night Fever, and there was this time between the film being finished and it being released. And I think it was during that time where I went back to getting whatever work, was available. And when you're in New York, and somebody, offers you a job on TV, because there wasn't at that time a lot of stuff going on. There was, a lot of daytime, which was great. And so I was thrilled to get it. Anything that, helped put something in the wallet was great.
So did you ever have to do a job, Donna, or did you move right into acting?
No, I think well, I worked a lot when I was a teenager. I worked I worked in a drugstore. I worked as a receptionist, just whatever job you could get to kind of, give yourself a better allowance. But not as many jobs. I think I waitressed once and got fired.
Did your parents support you? Did they support your decision, your choice?
Yeah, I was very, very lucky. My family was very supportive. So I never really had, I think I was a hammy kid. So, it was either that, I don't think it was a big surprise, when I said that's what I wanted to do. I think they all just sort of rolled their eyes and said, well, of course.
Okay, so Saturday Night Fever. So I've heard the story, but I want you to tell us. So there were numerous auditions?
Yes, I was, as I said, I had not, I think it was the first time I'd ever, in fact, I'm sure it was the first time I had ever auditioned for a film. And I had a really smart agent who didn't want to tell me much because she thought I would get too nervous, and she was, I'm sure right. And so originally, oh, and I also I never got a full script. You know, I got little sides or just excerpts from it. And John Avildsen was originally supposed to direct the film. So I had, I think, 3 auditions with him.
Mhm.
And a lot of it was sort of disjointed dialogue and pieces of the script, but mostly a lot of improvisation, a lot of kind of conversation about the people. And Shirley Rich was a casting director at the time,
Mhm.
who was just this incredible, brilliant woman who, when I saw her before I got to the director, you know, you usually audition for the casting people before you are blessed to see the director.
Right.
I had just come out of the academy, you know, in a sense, and she said, "Aren't you from Brooklyn?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And I had the standard American speech that I had really learned well. And she said, "You sound like you come from nowhere." And I said, "Well, I'm not supposed to use this accent because I was told I will never work." I said, "Well, go home, stay with your family for a while, and then come back and let's do this again." And then I went.
Wow.
So she really, you know, sort of made this happen. Anyway, getting back to what you were saying, I did 3 auditions with John Avildsen, and then it just sort of went away, and I didn't know
Did you
why.
read, did you read with Travolta when you
No,
were?
no, 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 no. It was just with the casting person, and John would kind of talk, and we'd kind of play with the dialogue, but no, it was just that. And then it went away, and then suddenly, I don't know, maybe a month later, it came back, and John Badham was on as director. And I
Right.
went through sort of the same thing with him, and I kept thinking, why? This is this little tiny role. Why do they need to see me so many times? And is this the way it is with movies? And she said, "Oh yeah, that's what they do. They audition you constantly for movies." And she didn't want to tell me this was a really big role. So I just assumed it was
Oh.
maybe 5, 6 lines, 10 lines in a scene. And I really didn't know until I got the part what this was.
Wow. Okay, wait, Donna, I'm going to say something. Don't, all right. Since we started, there's sun on your face. And if
I thought maybe that was just in my computer.
yeah,
Yeah,
no, we're seeing it. So I'm trying to get you out of that.
I know what that is. If
Okay, go do it.
should I get up? This is lovely. I'm going to leave the
You know
screen.
what? Wait, you know what?
I'm going to
I'm going to shut your thing off so that I'm
Okay.
going to shut your
It's
thing
my
off.
blinds.
See if
Yeah.
it would let me. Wait, it's not letting me. It's going to you. It's not letting me. You know what? If you stop camera on yours, it'll do it. Stop video. So we don't, because I stand up and let them see my ass in the.
Okay, I think, oh, look at
There
that.
you go. Good. Because I stand up and I turn around and let them see my ass and I cry about it for about 6 months afterwards. That's why I'm on Jenny Craig now.
Ah! Okay, so I don't think that helped tremendously, but
Right. Go put your camera back on. Let's
okay,
see.
now I have to find the camera. Okay, hang on. We know
Start
how
video
technical I am.
on the bottom.
Start video. Oh,
There you, oh no, it's still.
here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna just move this because it's my office blinds.
Okay, that's better. It's not in your face.
Better?
Yeah, I just didn't want to. I was woe to stop you through any of this, but I decided you don't want to see that.
I'm so sorry. I saw it on mine, but I just assumed it was because I don't have my glasses on.
Yeah, it's those orbs. Okay, so you're auditioning. Do you don't have any idea what you're auditioning for or how your part is?
I knew the theme of the script, and I was told kind of what it was about, but I had no clue really about any of it. And I think I found out on a Thursday or Friday that I had gotten the part, and I started on a Monday. So I was, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so now without the BG soundtrack, it must have been a different movie you guys were shooting until you heard that. Was it a different movie you were shooting until you heard that music?
What they did, we had different music to rehearse by, but it was a 3-month shoot. And I think, shot it backwards in many ways, because the last part of it was the dancing. That was the last part for the, I'm pretty sure. So we were in, rehearsal a lot of the time. And when we did hear the soundtracks, it was further into making the film, and it was incredible. I mean, I think everybody was just stunned at how great the music was, and how much fun it was to dance with it. I mean, it was just.
Did it up the game of the dancing? Because I mean, I hear that music and I just want to get up and dance. I mean, it's just so extraordinary.
It is indeed. It's amazing.
Okay, so were you a disco dancer before the film?
No, no, I was so unaware of so much of that. In fact, a lot of the cast, with the exception of John, because he was very recognizable from Welcome Back, Kotter, we went to the club before we started shooting, and we were like fish out of water. I mean, it was so obvious that none of us knew the vibe, none of us had the clothes, and that actual 2001 Odyssey was a very happening place for the local, area. And I think most of the people that went there knew each other. I mean, it was pretty obvious that these strangers were coming in and they didn't quite know why. And it was sort of intimidating.
Did you guys get up and dance when you were there?
I think we were more just observing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would have had the courage to get up and dance. I wouldn't have known how to do it at that point. So we just kind of wanted to check it out. And the thing about Brooklyn, as you know, is it's huge. So each area kind of has its own vibe, its own color, and you either stay in your neighborhood and know that really well, or you usually move out of Brooklyn. So I don't think I was even in that area for the most part until we made that movie. Or if I was, it was not to, go clubbing or anything. Maybe there was a reason to a particular store, or, someone lived there that
Right.
visit. But for the most part, I didn't really know Bay Ridge in that general area. So it was all very new. And I think in many ways it helped to kind of discover it really right before making that film.
How while we're on the dancing part, so John, obviously a ridiculous dancer. There's nobody like him. Was he a gracious and wonderful partner? I'll tell you a little story afterwards. Was he helpful to you?
The man is so generous and is so giving. And yes, to answer your question, he was an extraordinary dancer who had such a love of dancing and of making all of it authentic, and he wanted you to feel just as comfortable, and also understood that if these people were supposed to be dancing together for so long, if they were partners, then there had to be a chemistry and there had to be an understanding of the movement and how they would really work with one another. And he wanted that just as much as I did, and even more, in the sense that, he carried that film, and everything had to be very truthful. And, but as a person, he also wanted you to have a good time and feel good about what you were doing. And that's who John is. So it was really just a pleasure.
So I met him after a panel at SAG for the OJ thing, and he was the last one to stay and talk to every single person and shake every hand. And I said, I just want to dance with you before I die. And he said, well, let's not wait for that. And he spun me around and dipped me. I mean, oh my God.
That's John. That is in essence, that is who he is. He's
okay.
He's a whole heart.
So you have this relationship with him, but now you have to do all this very difficult stuff with him as well. And the breadth of your performance, from the dancing and the being that girl that we've all been, that's had the crush on the guy that wouldn't give us the time of day. I mean, your authenticity in that, maybe like no other performance I have ever seen of that kind of situation. No, I'm serious. I'm not blowing smoke.
Thank
that
you.
longing and that obsession and that single-mindedness of, I mean, is there any girl that hasn't been there?
Well, that was kind of how I thought of this character. I think everyone knew someone like this. Everyone knew that girl in high school, or everyone at some point felt like that girl. And the thing for me that was so important to do was not to make her a victim as much as to make her, you know, this kind of never say die, I'm going to make this happen until she realizes she can't. And it's almost like the youth steps in. When someone is that young and doesn't have life experience, you go on instinct. And I think her instinct was to just keep trying and keep trying and keep trying. And it went into that sort of desperation that I think a lot of young people experience because they don't think there's anything beyond it. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to, I mean, I don't want to get too analytical because I didn't want to play her that way, but I wanted her to just never feel like a victim and just think at some point she can make it happen until she realizes she can't.
And that scene that you had in the car, both with John, and then the subsequent scene. Joe Cali, by the way, is a friend. Lori Lieberman, his wife, has sang in my living room. Lovely. But doing both of those car scenes, did you know when you took the part that you were going to, had you seen those? Oh,
no.
Yeah.
No. No. And in the script, it was not as graphic, but I was so incredibly blessed because I had a director who is, John Badham is such an actor's director. He so understands all of it, what you want to put on film and what it takes to get you there. And he had a real, I think he has a real caring about what actors go through to achieve everybody's vision. I also had actors like Joe Cali, like Paul Pape, John, obviously, who were also very sensitive to the fact that this was going to be really tough and wanted to, if they could make it somehow easier, you know, do that. And I think there was just a lot of trust and a lot of caring that went into making sure that the performance could be what everyone wanted it to be, especially me, but having it done in a safe and secure environment. You know, John Badham had it as a closed set, and it was all very gently handled in a sense. so all of that emotion could come out and all of those things could happen. And then I wouldn't have to go right into therapy.
I mean, had you ever done any, I mean, your emoting in that scene is heart-wrenching. I would imagine you had to really go there. That didn't
do. I mean, yeah.
To me.
Yeah, I think you do to an extent, absolutely. You know, this is where I thank Lee Strasberg. I thank all of my teachers at the Academy. You know, I am so happy for my training. I'm so grateful for my training that I could accomplish what you're describing. And it's tremendous for me to hear you say these things, because that's why, you know, an actor does what they do, to be able to touch people. And you know, I'm thrilled to hear you say these things, and I get emotional just, you know, thinking about it. But it was, you know, it's one of those things where if I do nothing else in my career, I feel like I made a mark on a character that touched people.
Beyond that scene on the bridge. I mean, was that all choreographed? How? All right, Donna, move to your side again, because we're getting the yeah.
I'm, you know, pretty soon I'm going to be in another room. I'm just gonna move this.
No, you're great now. Now it's not there.
Why is Donna talking from her car? Well,
scene on the bridge.
The bridge. You mean that when he jumps,
yeah.
Or the scene? There's
two scenes on the bridge. There's your scene on the bridge also with him. Yeah, that one was.
Well, I mean, you know, the emotion was very raw, I think, for most of that part of the film. I think, you know, I think it was throughout, but towards from the middle to the end of the film, I think all of the characters go through these really intense transitions. And again, you know, I have to credit John Badham and the rest of the cast, because it was kind of a no holds barred. Everybody just went for it. And some of it was improvised, some of it was scripted, but wherever it went and however it landed, there was truth in all of it, because there was such an understanding that everyone had of the characters they were playing. And everyone got permission, you know, from the powers that be to do it, to go for it. And I think when you allow an actor to do that, you're going to get the best of them. So I think that's why it gelled so well. Everybody had such a sense of who they were playing and what they wanted the character to show and what they were going through. And obviously John Badham, you know, was at the helm and felt that was where he wanted his vision to go. So it really was a tremendous all for one for all kind of environment.
So he wasn't that in your face. He was kind of letting you do your thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he was very open to, you know, suggestions if you thought something was fun to do or whatever. I remember in the bar scene early on in the discotheque where she's sitting there and there's a stripper, mm-hmm. a dancer, taking off her, dancing without her clothes on and all. And there was a dress I had on that had a lot of cleavage showing. And I remember saying to, and you know, again, he let you feel brave enough to ask him things. And I remember saying to John Badham, I'm talking about, you know, can I try something here at the end? He said, yeah, go for it. And, you know, she's sitting there and she's watching this, and then she just kind of looks down and it's okay, I've got the goods, you know, and they used it in the film because it was a sort of truthful moment, you know, but it worked for the character because, you know, she felt, you know, that Tony was watching this girl strip and, you know, he was enjoying it, and could she compete? And then she, well, I'll try.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So I feel weird about saying this, but I have to because I've thought it all these years. All right. So Lynn Gorney, for me, not a strong dancer. I want you to be his partner. I mean, I think that's the whole point of the thing, right? Is that you're a better dancer. You look better with him, as far as I'm concerned. Was there, you know, is it my imagination? I mean, she annoyed me in the movie, to be honest with you. She just did. I wanted it to be you. I wanted you to be his girlfriend. I wanted you to be his dance partner. I was like, get out of here, you silly girl. You're not as good a dancer, you know, you're not as real a person. But was there any of that? I mean, how much of that was I supposed to feel?
I think, you know, I think there was so much more than her dance ability that I think she did a fine job with what she did, but I think that the character was supposed to be more than just a possible dance partner. I think she represented to John's character so much of what was not a part of his environment. She had left Brooklyn. She
Right,
had
broke
gone
away. Mm-hmm.
so I think it was more about the total picture, you know, where she was not just another dancer at the club. She was someone who came back to the club to dance, who had moved to Manhattan. She had made a life for herself. She was a girl that he rarely met and had opinions and her own life and a career and things that were intriguing to him beyond the dancing, I think. Mm-hmm. So I think it was a lot of that. And you know, as far as her ability, I think she pulled it off, and I think they certainly were a believable, you know, couple on the dance floor, as well as, you know, the storyline behind it.
Well, he outdanced that.
But John, I mean, who, you know, you can't, nobody's going to outdance John. I mean,
nobody's going to outdance, but you kept up with him pretty damn good.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Have you danced with him since?
You know, we, I'm friends with the family as well as with John, and his brother Joey and sister-in-law Wendy have a beautiful daughter named Rachel, who when she was married a couple of years ago, they just had a child. So I'm trying to think, it's probably maybe 4 years ago. We were all at the wedding together, and at one point John said, "Come on, let's dance." And I was so taken aback, and I said, "Well, there's music, there's dance." He says, "What did we do in the movie?" And I thought, 30 years ago, what did we do in the movie? I just had 2 glasses of wine. I can't see my shoes. And I so wanted to be, you know, together, and, you know, oh, fine, wonderful, let's do that. And all I kept saying is, "You're going to fall on your ass. You're going to fall on your ass. Just try not to do that." You know, so, but he, you know, he's such a doll. I just adore him, and it was fun, you know. So that was the last time I danced with him, was at Rachel Travolta's wedding.
That's pretty fantastic. I'm going to sneeze for no reason in a second. And so did you, excuse me, did you guys know, did you have any idea what you guys were sitting on before it came out? Did you have any clue what was going to happen there?
I don't think so. I don't think, I think certainly the powers that be might have had an inkling of what was going on. And I think possibly when it tested, I think films, you know, they go and people fill out cards and what have you, that did okay or did well. But I don't think anybody was prepared for the tsunami that became the success of that film.
How did your life change? Okay, so here you are, you're this girl from Brooklyn. Okay, you've gone to the academy, you've done some theater, but when that, because I think as soon as that film dropped, it was boom, right?
Incredible. I mean, I can't even compare it to anything. It was literally going from nothing to everything in a heartbeat.
So
And
what did your life look like from the day that that movie opened? How did your life change?
well, I went from leaving pictures and resumes and, pleading to get auditions to, I have Dino De Laurentiis on the phone for you. So I just, I was overwhelmed and I was so unprepared and I was trying so hard to make sense of it, none of which I could do on any real level. So for me, it was just this constant trying to act like, oh, sure, why not? Yeah, and then, and I remember, suddenly having meetings with people. I came out to California. I was still in New York, obviously, when this was happening. But then I came out to California a couple of months after it opened, because I had these meetings with people. I'm not kidding. Like one of them was with Dino De Laurentiis, which I couldn't even put together in my head. But I started having meetings with these giants in the industry, and all I could think about was, why am I, what do I say? Why am I here? Don't spill anything. Try not to speak too much. I mean, it was just, I was so nervous about trying to look like I knew what I was doing, because I knew nothing of what I was doing.
You faked it really well. Okay, so so TV became a huge part of your life. How did you segue into TV from that?
Well, I was at one point right before Angie came up. I was on a deal with Ray Stark, if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
That whole world, and it was for 3 films, and it was for I think one of the films was a musical, and it was going to have a recording contract. I mean, it was this
Wow.
big thing, and the first film kept getting rewritten, and they kept putting it into turnaround. I mean, I just kept waiting for this thing to happen. And during all of this, Garry Marshall wanted to meet me about Angie. And at the time, agents, well, you can't do television, you're going to be doing films, and this is Garry Marshall. It's too good not to, meet with this genius. And when
Wait, Donna,
that,
were you as I'm sorry to interrupt you. Were you as adept in college at the academy in comedy? Were you doing as much comedy as you were drama? Was one thing pulling you more? Because
I think I was doing both, but I think the idea of doing a comedy felt really right to me, because I'm a very serious person. I wanted to take that. But the idea of working for Garry and doing a show, like any of the ones he had been already, associated with, was, ridiculous not to take. So they got me out of this other thing because there was nothing at that moment to put me in, because everything was in turnaround and this and that. So they were able to sort of get that off the table and go with the series of Angie, which I was more than happy and thrilled. And Garry Marshall pitching a show to you is something like a visit to heaven. It's just, his office was sort of like a combination office, candy store, amusement park. And he just had this extraordinary energy about him, as you know, where you fall in love with him when you meet him. He was this incredible spirit.
he was in the living room when he wrote his book, and I got to go to his office, which I'm sure was a different office than you had been in, but it was all filled with memorabilia and
Yeah.
toys and fun
And a
things.
gumball machine and an M&M thing. And I mean, I remember walking into this thinking, I'm, you know, I'm in the presence of greatness here, and they have a cool office too. This is, you know, it's amazing.
And how was he? How was he as a boss?
You know, again, this is where I cannot believe my luck. The people that I have been, you know, blessed to work with have been so extraordinary in their talent, in their humanity, in everything about them. And for Garry, again, you know, like John Badham and other, you know, they wanted you to do your best work and enjoy what you were doing and believe in what you were doing, and put all the greatest people together to make that happen. I'm trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
Whatever that is there. This tells me I need to get curtains and get rid of the blinds if I'm going to continue to do Zoom. So no, it was extraordinary. And the cast they put together, my gosh, you know, that was.
Okay, so Deborah Lee Scott, I adored from Mary Hartman, Doris Robert. Oh my God, Doris, and Robert Hayes at the height of his career, because wasn't this at the same time as Airplane?
No, he did Angie first, and then he did Airplane during the second season of Angie. He was doing both.
Oh my God.
Which was making for him, yeah.
And I read something today that I didn't remember, but they had him dancing to a song from Saturday Night Fever in Airplane.
Yes. And the funny story behind that was Bob is a really, really dear friend of mine. And to this day, we are very close. In fact, he's my son's godfather and I'm his son's godmother. And, you know, it's really just been a friendship of decades. But during the course of that show, when he was doing Airplane, he said, I'd like you to come to the set. We're going to film this one section. I think you're going to, you know, enjoy. If you can, you know, come by, that would be great. I said, oh, I'd love to do that, you know, and it was that scene. And I literally had to, I mean, I had to, I think, hold my face because I would have just blown the take. It was so hysterical to watch. And he was on a harness, you know, so they could, if you have him do that dance, I mean, he was so hysterical, which he is anyway.
Right.
But there it was doing a parody of that. And at the same time at Paramount, John was filming Urban Cowboy. And I mean, aside from, I guess, what they were doing in Texas, there was some of it done on the lot. And I said, you got to meet him and tell him about this. And so at some point, I was able to put the two of them together. And I said, tell him about that scene, tell him about that scene. And Bob would not tell him. He just said, you know, there's this really funny scene. Yeah, you'll see it and you'll get it. But you'll recognize the music. I don't want to really tell you too much about it. It's really, it's very funny. And they became friends. I mean, it was really just hysterical.
That is one. Did you get to hang out with the Bee Gees ever?
I never met them until after the film. Yeah. So, but boy, that was extraordinary. You know, the music was just amazing. And that documentary that was just on recently.
Fantastic.
The whole story behind it. I didn't know half of that. That was extraordinary.
I saw a picture of you with Andy Gibb from somewhere. Were you?
No, Andy was doing Pirates of Penzance on Broadway. And that was actually a birthday party for Maureen McGovern. And they were doing Pirates together on Broadway. And that's how I met Andy. That was at the party. And everybody thought that we were a couple from that picture. But that was from the party. So I have no really cool dish to tell you at all.
Did Maureen McGovern do the song for
Different Worlds? She did the theme song for Angie. Yeah. So she was a good friend. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So okay. So now you're a TV star. So how is your life different now? You're a TV star.
Versus before?
Yeah, well, because first you're a movie star.
Oh, okay. It's so funny because, I never, I don't know. I don't think of myself as, the thing about doing a series, which is so fantastic, is that it's like you get to go to work every single day and you get to do this really fabulous material, but you have these banker's hours and you can have a life at the same time you can do a sitcom. It's just unbelievable, except, for the night that you film the show, for the most part, you're doing just a normal, I mean, it may be a little bit longer, but, it's great. So for me, I thought, wow, this is a whole other world than doing films, because with a film, you pretty much, that's your life. And
Right.
it's fine and it's wonderful. And there's certainly, nothing but, day-to-day great work, thrilling, environment. And, it's not, there's nothing bad about it, but the thing, that's all you're doing. So doing the series taught me, that, wow, this is kind of cool that I could actually be an actor and do that. And also, have a life as well, which I hadn't had yet. So that was kind of fun.
How did you meet your husband? How'd you meet Arnold?
Arnold and I were a blind date.
Stop.
Yes. Yes. So all of you out there who think blind dates are bad, no.
Who was the matchmaker?
Neil Israel and Amy Heckerling were married at the time. And Amy was a good friend of mine and Neil was a good friend of Arnold's. And they decided we should meet. And I went kicking and screaming, kind of. But there it is.
Love at first sight, or was it friendship?
No, it was love at first sight, which really pissed me off big time, because I didn't like not being in control of everything. So I know that's very hard to tell, isn't it? That I like that. But yeah, it was, and we went to a place that I thought, he said, well, we talked on the phone, and I said, well, let's go for a drink. I didn't want to, commit to dinner. It was too long. And he said, okay. And we went to a place that turned out not to have a bar. And I made the maitre d' so insane that set up this little table for us so I would just shut up. And we sat at this little sort of makeshift table by a coat room. So, it was like, well, I'm going to go now, because I was not going to, stay longer than, 45 minutes or whatever. But I knew the minute I met him that this was going to be different.
Wow. How long did it take till you guys married?
About a year and a half.
Pretty quick.
Yeah, pretty quick. And in November, it'll be 34 years. So go figure.
That is, I love that. That is so, by the way, Lee Purcell told me to ask me to ask you your ham radio moniker.
Oh God, Lee is so technically brilliant and I am so technically stupid. Lee taught me how to Zoom because I was so afraid that I would accidentally do things like press a button and my garage door would open or a blender would go on. Everything freaked me out. And so when this came up, she said, well, I said, I'm doing, Vicky's show tomorrow. We were talking on the phone and she said, well, and I said, I don't know. And I gave her the list of all of your platforms. And I'm so impressed that I know they're called platforms. I thought it was shoes before yesterday. So she said, I said, I don't know what many of these are though, to Lee. And Lee, and I said, is it like what did I say? I said, is it like not a ham radio, what did they use during the wars? A shortwave?
I guess, yeah.
I said, is it like that? She said, no, it's a ham radio. That's what, so I said, okay, then I should have, she said, you have to have a moniker. So I said it would be Brooklyn Short Gal.
We should have written that in your little box there on
That's it.
Brooklyn Short Girl. Okay. So while we're talking about people, so you did a lot of television. You did a lot of, other than your own shows, which we'll get back to, but Trapper John, you work with Gregory Harrison.
And John Rubinstein. Yeah,
John,
it was amazing. Yeah.
Okay. Love Boat. Jim Colucci asked me to ask you about Love Boat because you did it many times. He said you must have enjoyed it because you went back again and again. So anything funny happen on a Love Boat? Any Gavin memories? Anything special there?
Oh, yeah. Well, Gavin was just, he was one of those people that you met him, and in the first 5 minutes you thought, oh, this is the sweetest man on the face of the earth, and what a heart, and what a talent. And to me, I looked at him and, oh my God, it's Murray from Mary Tyler Moore. I just he was always just the most lovely human being, and just wonderful to work with. But that show, I used to go back and forth from New York to LA, and during those years, and it was always, when an offer would come in to do it, I'd say, oh, of course. It was the people on that show, everyone, Ted, everyone. I mean, they couldn't have been more fun to work with, and more lovely. And Aaron Spelling could not have been more wonderful to work for. And he was always extremely lovely and generous, and would pay well. But the funny, you ask about a particular show. James MacArthur, who was on Hawaii Five-0, Jimmy MacArthur, who played Dano, Dano. He had a storyline that was so ridiculous that Fred Brandy was on Johnny Carson's show, and Johnny Carson said, was there ever a storyline that even you felt was a little kind of over the top or out
John,
there?
watch you're going into the light again. Don't go into the light.
Go into the light. And he brought up this particular storyline that Jimmy and I had done, which we had so much trouble keeping a straight face. I played a maid with a club foot, and he played a concert piano with rheumatoid arthritis, and he couldn't play anymore. And so for some reason, he was going to play one more time to get me a new foot. And it was so, I was limping around. In my head, I was doing the Glass Menagerie. I said, Laura, do Laura from the Glass Menagerie. And there I was limping around with a club foot, and he was walking around with these arthritic fingers. And it was so insane that it was sweet. I don't know how else, and but I think that somehow they'd make it work. They would have these storylines that were so everywhere, all over the place, but they would, make it work because but I remember laughing a lot during that particular one.
That sounds fun. All right, so you also broke ground, which blows my mind as someone who is very sensitive to the LGBTQ community. So you were the first gay character on a soap opera?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all my children. So what was that? How was that for you?
Well, again, this is in the column of being lucky. This is one of those things.
What year was
I got a call.
Approximately.
I'm going to say early 80s.
Okay.
To mid 80s, somewhere in and around then. I got a call saying that they wanted to do this, and it was just a guest star for a period of time, where they could do the storyline. And I think I shot that show for maybe 5 to 6 weeks, and I could be wrong. And it aired over a longer period of time. was a storyline with a beginning and a middle and an end. And how it was, you know, presented to me was, we want to do this gay character because it's not been done, and it's not been done in a way that we want to show people that it's a character that is like any other character that just happens to be, versus, you know, some strange storyline about some strange person. And I was so really flattered that they would ask me to do this, because I thought, how great to be the first person to represent, you know, the LGBT community, and have an audience that can support, you know, this storyline and sort of express, you know, this story that has not been told in any way that had been done before on daytime. And I don't think there were a lot of nighttime shows that had done it either. Right. And, you know, basically it was a storyline that now, you know, would be nothing special, but because the character was gay, you know, it became this other thing. And it was great because I think for people finally were able to, you know, see themselves in a character without having to be offended in any way. You know, I was the mail that came in. I know I'm all over the map with this.
No. I was going to ask you about this. Was there any blowback or?
Well, of course, there's most of it was very positive. I think, you know, I think the network was careful about how they did it because it was such new territory. So they kept it in a very sort of safe storyline where there was a character who, my character was gay, and this character who was straight said, I think I'm in love with you and I'd like to have a relationship with you. And she said, no, I don't think that's the case. I think you're just, you know, off of finishing a relationship that didn't work, and you're looking for something, you know, from someone to give you, you know, a life that you think you won't have otherwise. And that's not what I'm about or what you're about. And and they did it in a way that was, I want to say, orchestrated to be okay for the audience and yet groundbreaking for the gay community. And now it would be looked upon as very tame and kind of not really expressed as well as it could have been. But at the time was, you know, very brave. And I mean, I thought it was a tremendous opportunity for me to do something as an actor, not just as a performer, but to do something, you know, to support a community that had not been really dealt with.
Yeah. And also that was like AIDS was very at the fore in those days.
Yeah. We all lost a lot of friends, and there was a lot of misinformation and miscommunication. So I was very proud to do that.
I spoke to Harry Hamlin, and he played a gay character, and it changed his career, not for the better in his case. His was very explicit, though. He had a much more.
He did the film. And he was brilliant. You know, I think at that time, it was just such uncharted territory. People didn't know what to do. And it was just a lot easier for people that didn't have the scope of the world or whatever to just put a label on someone or something. And, you know, it's very unfortunate that it took this long. I think there's still a lot of challenges ahead. but I think there's been tremendous headway made. Um, and, you know, I just feel if someone can use their voice or their talent to better the situation and to help, I mean, what a gift.
Was anybody unkind to you? Like, did you go to the supermarket? Did you, because the soap operas hit a lot of people, a lot of women.
You know, no, I didn't. I think, you know, I'm going to say for the most part, uh, it was really received well, and people were really happy about seeing that storyline and that character. You know, I think people that are shallow and ignorant are going to be shallow and ignorant no matter what. You know, it's not going to change anybody's mind who made up their mind based on lies.
Right.
So, but I think it did change some minds for people that maybe were open to look at the world differently. And I personally, it never hurt me in any way. If anything, you know, it's always been something I'm very proud of. And when people bring up, you know, they're happy to talk about it.
I love that, Donna. Moving on from there, you got to work with Burt Reynolds, Out of This World. Burt Reynolds, one of the, I don't know, tell me, in real life, if he is as wonderful as I perceive him to be, as
Yes.
charming as.
Yes, 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 and yes. Burt Reynolds was a superstar. And I don't think when you met Burt Reynolds and just because of what he had done prior, and you know, I think there's a sense of awe, you know, when you meet people like that, even though they are so sweet and can be so down to earth, and even though, you know, they may be volatile in some situations or whatever, you know, because I know he had that part of him. I didn't see it, I didn't experience that, but you know, he was such a hero to me. And the other part of that for me was that he had this theater in Jupiter, Florida. And everyone would, you know, do a play for Burt at some point. It was just the greatest fun in the world. And he had this beautiful theater and a beautiful school that he had that Charles Nelson Riley used to run. He was the director of, and it was quite a good acting school. And so, you know, there was all of the theater situation with the students and Burt running. I mean, it was just this incredibly wonderful situation. And so I did a play there with Marilyn McCrew and a play called My Name is Alice, which was a musical. And Arnold, this is my Burt Reynolds connection here with Arnold. Arnold came to see the show and asked me to marry him down there. So we got engaged at Burt Reynolds Theater. And so Burt, I know, it was really sweet. At one point, he had everyone to his house and did this incredible toast to Arnold and I about love and about life. And it was just so extraordinary. So I had already had that experience with Burt before I had worked with him on Out of This World. So he was, you know, already sort of family in that sense. And so incredibly lovely and talented. And
is he as funny as I imagine him to be? Was he funny on the set? Like, was he a prankster and stuff?
You know, the thing about he did the voiceovers for the character of my husband. Again, you know, a storyline that I had married an alien. I don't know if you know the story. The alien was on his planet and I was here, but while he was here, we had a child. And that's me raising this child. And he would talk to the child and to me through this, I used to call it a candy dish, but it wasn't. It was some sort of crystal thing. It looked like a candy dish my grandmother would have had in Brooklyn. It was a crystal thing. It used to open up and he'd talk. It was a sort of telephone type of thing. Anyway, so that was Burt's part of the show, was his voice. He was never on camera. I would see him occasionally because I would just, see him, but he was never on set.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right. Well, somebody that I'm guessing was on set with you when you did Even Stevens, and 3 Emmy nominations. Oh my God. Shia LaBeouf, when he was,
he was a baby. He was 13 years old when we started that show.
Okay, so he's kind of eccentric. Was he eccentric then?
I'm going to move so I think.
Yeah, I'm seeing that again.
I'm actually, is that okay? You're seeing it? Are you okay now?
You're good now. You're good.
Oh, okay, good. Because I was actually almost in your shot. So, was Shia eccentric? No. Shia was a child who had so much talent and had so little guidance in his life that he flew by the seat of his pants in the world. Okay, so I think in many ways, this is a guy who went from being on a TV show as a really young kid who was impressionable, who was not necessarily parented the way most children are parented, and had a lot of difficulty with his father, who, if you saw Honey Boy,
I did, yes,
was pretty. And so I think, they talk about post-traumatic stress syndrome and all of that and what that does. And I think that's a lot of what Shia went through and went to therapy for, and has demons that he's still dealing with. But this is a guy who has a wonderful heart, who has exceptional talent, and I think has to constantly deal with stuff that many people don't. There's a lot of emotional damage that was done to him. And I think he has, unfortunately, acted out because of it, and some his own fault, some maybe not, because it's just, again, the way he was wired. But I have a lot of faith in him. I think he's going to pull it together. And I love that. He's a kid to me. He's always going to be a kid to me. He's like my other son. I think he will survive and survive well, and I think he will turn it around. And I hope he does, because I think whatever he has done that has hurt him or other people can be fixed, should be fixed. And I think he wants it to be fixed. And I think that's the start.
I agree. So I came across a photograph of you and Barry Williams that I'm going to assume is from Greece. Is that from Greece? You must have been doing Greece. You must have been Rizzo.
Yes.
I'm guessing.
Yes, and you can see Belinda Carlisle is in that picture.
Yes, yes.
Also Casey Kasem, and it looks like my makeup was done by Earl Shibes. That you put that picture up, I thought, I'm going to kill her, but okay, fine.
Come on, that is the most historical picture.
It is such a goofy picture, because we did Grease at the Terrace Theater in Long Beach, and it was so much fun. It's such a great show, and so, oh my God, I mean, what a workout that is as an actor and a dancer, and just, it's a joy to do that show. And I got to play Rizzo, and I wanted to play Rizzo for so long. And I started having a career in LA and never was able to do it in New York. And when this came to me, I thought, yeah, absolutely. I was the only person I knew who had not done Grease. So I had to, in order to stay friends with them. It was great fun, and Barry was wonderful, and Belinda
What
was
a
wonderful,
cast.
and
Wow.
so was, it was great. It was a great cast. It was a lot of fun.
So, okay, so here we are, and it's the ending of pandemic, let's hope. If you had your, is there something you'd still love to do that you haven't done, or something? Is there more theater in your future, do you think? Would you like to do like a Netflix series? I mean, like, what calls to you now?
I'll just say yes.
Yeah.
Everything, yes to all of the above. You know, I'm dying to do something that challenges me as an actor. I'm dying to do something that scares me. I've been so lucky and so blessed to do as much work as I have. And I would love to go back to the theater and do another play. I did a play called Rest in Pieces that Steve Bluestein wrote in 2014. We did that in Delaware at the Delaware Rep. It was so much fun, and it was such a good play and such a good character. And I had not done a play for so many years. I was so petrified because you can't say, "Can I have another take?" And I mean, but it does come back to, that was my roots. You know, that's where you start, and it's still my favorite thing to have that audience and that energy and that incredible connection going on. And the spontaneity of it all is just amazing, you know. So I'd love to do another play. I'd love to do a Netflix series, but you know, I'd love all of the above, as you say. But I'm hoping that there's a character out there that scares the crap out of me that I can grab
So
on.
like, because I imagine that Annette was kind of scary to
Yeah.
jump into, right? So something like that, something that challenges you emotionally or something.
Yeah, but with not as high a heel, maybe this time.
Donna, I adore you, and you are as lovely and as easy as I expected that you'd be. I mean, we've never met. We've chatted on the phone for 5 seconds a couple times, but I've chased you down for years, it feels like. Thank you so much for doing that.
Well, I have had a great time, and thank you so much for having me. And I thank everyone who's watching. I mean, it's really been great fun.
Well, I look forward to so much more you, and hopefully in real life, and have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you again.
And to you as well.
Thanks,
To you
Donna.
as well.
Bye-bye, everybody.